In August of 2018, I moved to Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, without having so much as read its Wikipedia page. That may seem crazy to most people, but I like to think of it as charmingly adventurous. Once in the country, I realized there was a topic on everyone's lips about life there: air pollution. I didn't know how bad it was going to get at that point, because autumn was beautiful, clear, with an impossibly blue sky. But as the weather quickly turned to winter, I saw that actually they'd been selling the pollution short. By the middle of January, if I looked out of my classroom door, I couldn't see through the thick air to the end of the corridor. And I had to break my habit of sleeping with my windows open at night, as I would frequently wake up with a fine layer of ash over everything in my flat and the unshakable taste of burning in my mouth for the rest of the day. Actually, Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia is the most polluted capital city in the world. And if I'd done any research at all, I would have found out that everyone was talking about it outside of Mongolia as well. In fact, the World Health Organization has declared air pollution in Mongolia is a humanitarian crisis. The air pollution in Mongolia is characterized by high rates of particulate matter, PM, fine particles of pollutants that are so small that they're incredibly dangerous when they're inhaled. The most concerning type, PM 2.5, is so fine that it goes through the lungs and passes directly into the bloodstream. The World Health Organization has set an acceptable level of PM 2.5 pollution in air as 10 micrograms per cubic meter. Winter days in Mongolia, the measured levels exceed 1,000. Today, 1 in 9 deaths in Mongolia is directly attributable to air pollution. Particulate matter pollution in Mongolia is created through burning raw coal, garbage, and tires in the poorest areas of Mongolia, called Ger districts, that are unplanned areas that fan up the hillsides from the central downtown area, and now house 60% of Mongolia's total population, nearly 1.6 million people. Ger districts are named after traditional Mongolian gers, felted wool tents stretched over an expandable wooden frame that the residents have brought from their formerly nomadic lives in the countryside. Ger districts are unplanned, unstructured, they lack passable roads and often stable access to utilities such as electricity and water. And like similarly impoverished areas in cities all over the world, they've become an easy scapegoat for all of the problems facing Mongolia. Local politicians and Western designers that come in to try to solve the problems there have decided that the best course of action is for Mongolians to abandon their gers and build permanent homes and structured apartment blocks. But as a STEAM designer and an educator in the city, I just thought there has to be a better way. Because gers are incredible. They've been refined in practice for over 3,000 years. They're a marvel of engineering and purposeful intent. They're incredibly strong, flexible, portable, they're stable in heavy snows and high winds, and they're incredibly effective shelter in a punishing natural environment. And then there's the felt. And the felt is really next level. It's fluffy, it's thick, it's warm, it's layered on the walls in sections up to 10 inches thick. It's also used in interior tapestries, cushions, and floor coverings. It's made from the fibers of 5 Mongolian animals, dependent on the region and the composition of local herds: sheep, goats, camels, horses, and yaks. It's naturally permeable, so it allows some airflow to prevent the buildup of carbon monoxide inside. It's water wicking and naturally flame retardant. But its importance goes beyond the practical. The felt is incredibly important to Mongolian culture, and the ritual around its making is a centuries-old practice that connects communities and honors the ancestors who've passed down the mother felts through the generations. Not to mention that being in a Mongolian ger has a sensual quality that cannot be denied. The felt is cozy and inviting, it smells like a warm animal, and you feel like you're ensconced in a womb. Insomniacs the world over agree the best sleep you'll ever have in your life is in a Mongolian ger. Now, the problems facing Mongolia are messy. They're what designers often call wicked problems. So there's no quick fix. They're just a tangled ball of complicated issues that it can feel so big to unravel and so hard to make tangible progress on. Designers often focus in on one small part of it, so they feel like they can have some success in solving the problem, while the whole big tangle goes unresolved, or it can even become worse through unexpected consequences of their short-term actions. To understand these problems, we need to be creative, and we need to broaden our scope and look not just at the nuts and bolts practical parts of these problems, but we need to understand the bigger issues at play. We need to look at the whole culture that is creating these problems. We need to look at the shifting natural environment, at the ebbs and flows of civilizations, at historical context, and we need to imagine imaginative views of our future. We need to consider every field, idea, issue, and opinion that comes to play on these issues. And we need to listen to the voices, not just of experts, but of everyone involved in this situation. And we need to privilege and honor their lived experiences. We must all work together as co-collaborators to devise solutions to these problems that are highly contextualized and perfectly situated to a specific place and time. As I started to work with my students in Mongolia and government organizations in the Ger district to come up with design-based solutions to the problems there, one of the first places that seemed natural for me to work was in material. Material is incredibly significant to humans. It's important to our culture. It impacts our physical and our mental health. And I knew that the materials already in use in Mongolian gers were an incredibly interesting springboard for further exploration. So I began to start remixing the materials that were in use in Mongolia and leaning into the natural properties that these materials already had, combining them with other elements and in different ways to add in different function, with the hope that this could start to create short-term stopgap solutions for the residents in Mongolia to quickly take action on improving the air quality in their homes. Now, mycelium and mushrooms are a wonder material that a lot of designers are talking about at the moment, and we're only at the beginning of understanding what they can bring to us. But I started to use them in combination with the wool that's already in the ger walls to create a mid-range building material that was still biodegradable, flexible, and portable, but would add a bit more stability to transitional dwellings. Scientists have already proven that mushrooms will remove impurities from soil and water, and I thought, why not air? This is just one example of some of the material explorations that I'm looking at that are using materials that are already present, significant, and perfectly adapted to Mongolia. And looking at materials is just one of the steps that we can take as we work towards healthier ger districts in Mongolia and a healthier overall planet. Not all citizens of the world have the same agency over their roles in the global environmental crisis, but we can all take small steps as we move towards a global, sustainable environment. This is a theory called transition design, which says that we can take actionable steps immediately to create a more sustainable natural environment and a more circular economy. Again, those big choices, the big tangles, they can seem too messy to unravel. But transition design says that by taking actionable steps in short-term futures, we can create hope and impact as we move towards our longer-term goals. We need to take a creative approach, and we need to start today to reimagine a world with smarter materials where we work with our environment and our cultural legacies are jumping off points rather than hindrances as we work towards a healthier planet and healthier communities. Thank you.